All right, let's get into it. We're about to unpack the story behind one of the most influential books ever printed. And I'm not just talking about its religious impact, I mean how it literally built the English language as we know it. You see, this wasn't just another translation. Oh no, this was a masterpiece, forged in what you can only call a perfect storm.
So here's the big question, right? How on earth does a Bible translation from all the way back in 1611 get so woven into our culture that its phrases are still popping up everywhere, in movies, in music, in the way you and I talk every single day? What was the secret sauce for this one, the King James Version?
Well, the answer isn't just one thing. It was this incredibly rare moment when three massive forces slammed into each other. You had a king with a huge political problem, you had a once-in-a-lifetime gathering of scholars, and you had a very deliberate, brand new, and majestic style of writing. Each piece of that storm is critical, so let's break them down one by one.
First things first, the politics. You really can't understand the King James Bible without understanding the man himself, King James I, and the complete mess of a kingdom he had just taken over.
So King James had a huge headache. His country was split between two different Bibles. On one side, you had the Geneva Bible. Everybody loved it, it was the people's book, but its margins were packed with little notes that James saw as radical, even anti-king. Yikes. On the other side was the official Bishop's Bible. But it was clunky, academic, and frankly, no one really wanted to read it. He needed one Bible to bring his nation together, not two that were pulling it apart.
And this is where the genius comes in. James's solution was a political masterstroke. He commissioned a brand new translation, and his rule number 6 for the translators was the key. By banning all those controversial political notes, he was creating a clean text. It was a book that both the fiery Puritans and the establishment Anglicans could actually agree on. It wasn't for a faction, it was for the nation.
Okay, so that's element 1 of the storm. Now let's look at the second piece of this puzzle. The sheer brain power James pulled together for this thing, it was absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah, this was not the work of one lonely guy translating by candlelight. Not at all. King James assembled a literal dream team. We're talking 54 of the most brilliant language experts of the entire era. These guys didn't just know Greek and Hebrew, they breathed it. This wasn't a committee, it was a scholarly army.
And their process? It was just as incredible as the team itself. It was almost like an assembly line for scholarship. They split the 54 scholars into 6 groups, or companies. One group would translate a section, and then, get this, it had to be sent to all 5 other groups for review. Then, a final supercommittee checked every single verse again for consistency. This process was amazing because it filtered out any one person's weird ideas or biases and created this incredibly unified, authoritative voice.
So we've got the political motivation, we've got the academic muscle, but the final piece of the storm, and you could argue the most important one, was the unique sound of the King James Bible.
Now, the translators were aiming for something called formal equivalence, which is a fancy way of saying they tried to be as literal and word for word as possible. But, and this is the crucial part, they didn't let accuracy kill the poetry. They were obsessed with crafting English sentences that had a powerful, unforgettable rhythm.
You know, as the writer C.S. Lewis later pointed out, the goal was never to sound modern. It was the opposite. They intentionally used words like thee and thou, which were already getting a little old-fashioned, to create what you might call a sacred distance. They wanted the language to have a kind of grandeur, something that felt timeless, something that felt, well, holy.
And that, right there, was the secret. You have to remember, the King James Bible was made to be read aloud. Boom from a church pulpit every single Sunday. Its real power was auditory. Those beautiful rolling sentences were engineered to fill a massive cathedral and just echo in your ears.
So, the storm hits. The book is published in 1611, and the impact is just world-changing. The King James Bible didn't just change religion, it completely rewired the English language itself.
The salt of the earth? A drop in the bucket? Fight the good fight? I mean, have you ever used these phrases? Of course you have. We all have. And they all come straight out of the King James Bible. They're so deep in our language now that we don't even think about the fact that we're quoting a 400-year-old book.
Think about it, because this was the one book that was read in almost every church, week in and week out, across the entire English-speaking world. It became this powerful linguistic anchor. It did more to standardize spelling, grammar, and vocabulary than any dictionary ever could.
And when you put it side by side with what came before, the difference is just staggering. Before the KJV, Bibles were often tools for a specific faction. The KJV was about national unity. Before, you might have one or two translators. The KJV had 54. Before, you had those political notes. The KJV banned them. It was a complete and total revolution in what a Bible was supposed to be.
And that's really the heart of its legacy. By perfectly blending political genius, world-class scholarship, and a truly majestic style, the creators of the King James Bible made something that, as one historian put it, just felt like how the Word of God should sound. It rose above the arguments and became the Bible for centuries.
Which kind of leaves us with one last fascinating question to chew on. The King James Bible was the product of a very specific time. A single king, a national church, a powerful new technology called the printing press. But today, in our totally fractured, digital, global world, could any single project, any single text, ever have that kind of unifying power over a language again? It's something to think about.